Hey everyone, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. What I want to talk to you about today is the difference between laser engraving when I started, which was back in 2022, to now just 2025, which is not that much later, but boy, are things just changing, and it's really amazing and really exciting time. So I've told the story before that back in around 2020, I had a customer that asked me to engrave 150 knives. That's what got me started on the whole idea of maybe one day I'll buy an engraver to be able to engrave knives. What was disappointing back then was when I looked into it, I found out that to engrave knives, you basically needed a fiber laser, and they were extremely expensive at the time, around $10,000. So I kept my eye on everything. I even thought maybe there'll be an engraver somewhere who's going out of business or retiring and sells off their equipment cheap, and maybe I can get one at a severely reduced price. But actually what happened, the technology in lasers, especially diode lasers at the time, was really ramping up and bringing the cost of consumer lasers or hobby lasers, lasers that would be good for small businesses, down significantly. So when I first jumped in, I was kind of at the very beginning of all of that. In fact, my first laser was a Kickstarter project, which is a crowdfunding site. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, you can even lose your investment. Sometimes the product that you invest in doesn't even come to market. Fortunately, the one that I did come to market, and I got my first laser for a cost of around $1,300. When that product actually hit the market, it was around $1,800, even a little bit more if you were adding in a lot of the extras and things that I got for free as an early investor. And I think my total price was somewhere around $2,500. Well, now today in 2025, that same laser is still available. It's still a very great laser, and for some people, it would be perfect. The cost now is exactly what I invested in. That $1,300 that I paid, that I could have even lost all of it and never even gotten the product, that is the current price for that particular laser. Well, here we are now, just around 3 years later. The technology is just mind-blowing. It has grown fast, and new things come out a couple times a year. So not long after I invested in my very first laser, the first affordable fiber lasers came on the market that were powerful enough to where I could have done that 150 knife job. Let me just state this. My first laser that I got, it would have taken an incredible amount of time to engrave 150 knives. So even my first laser that I invested in wouldn't have been able to really handle the job that CEO had brought to me, because it just simply wasn't fast enough, and it would have taken me probably months to complete 150 knife engravings. We now have fiber lasers that are easily equivalent to what cost 10 grand just a few years ago, and most of them are under $2,000, which is really exciting, because if you decide to get into laser engraving now, the abilities of these machines are just mind-blowing. The hardest part, I think, today is just picking the right machine for you. So what I'm going to do today is I want to talk about the two machines right now in my shop that are my biggest workhorses. These are the machines that I go to for almost all of my engraving. One of them I've had for a good while now, and the other one is relatively new. It's truly an amazing machine. So I'm going to show you both these. I'm going to compare what they can both do and what they can't do. I'm going to show you the costs of both of these machines and how it could work into your business if you want to get into laser engraving, whether it be as a knife sharpening shop like I did, or if just as a laser engraving business and not doing anything else but laser engraving. Let's get started, and here are the two machines we're going to be talking about. The newest one in my shop, and this is the ComMarker Omni1, and the second one is my ComMarker B6 20-watt fiber laser. One other thing worth mentioning before we get into the details of these two particular lasers, And it's kind of a comparison to the knife sharpening side of my shop. What I've done when I built my knife sharpening shop was to add machines for very specific purposes. Sometimes it's even only one specific purpose. I have particular machines just for sharpening scissors. In fact, I have 2 machines for sharpening scissors. My point here is that lasers can be very much the same way. And today it's becoming, I think, one of the hardest things to do is picking the right laser to start with. But also know this, that there are lasers that are going to be really fantastic at doing necessarily one thing and maybe not able to do anything else but that one thing. Then there's going to be lasers that are marketed as multi-use and doing lots of different things. And we're really getting into some incredible special use lasers now today as well. When that friend of mine told me, you're not going to have one laser, you're going to have several, they were right. But I also think it's something you can build over time. You could never add any additional lasers if you pick the right laser up front and you're doing what you want to do in laser engraving and not looking to expand or add any more. My example for that would be if I only wanted to do knife engravings and that was the only service I was going to offer in addition to my knife sharpening shop, there's plenty of lasers that can do that, and I wouldn't need to add any other lasers to my inventory. What does happen though, when you start laser engraving, is before you know it, people are asking you, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's all these other things that start to come in, and you start to realize, wow, if I had a laser that could do that, I could make more money. If I had a laser that could do this, I could make more money. I'm getting a lot of requests for, hey, can you engrave glassware? Hey, can you engrave acrylic? Hey, can you engrave stone? And you will get these requests and they come in, and it's what will start you thinking of potentially adding other things to your laser engraving shop should you want to do that, or if you want to only be a laser engraving shop. So that's my point. I just wanted to add that in before we get too deep into looking at these 2 particular lasers. All right, so let's start with the ComMarker B6. The first thing you need to know is this is a beautifully compact unit. So if you don't have a ton of space, this is a nice size. It is 29 pounds. It is not gigantic. It fits on a nice average size like shop table. And you can see it is not taking, I have plenty of room on this table to have this laser and other things on there. This plate can be removed, and this whole base here could go anywhere I wanted to put it within the length of this giant cord you see here in the back. So I could store this part that is the rest of the guts of the laser below it, on the floor, on the side. I could put it somewhere else and have this closer to the level of the table if I wanted to. I'm doing mine as an all-in-one unit. This has worked just fine for me, but that is an option. So you have the 2 options of just even how you want to set this machine up. Now, this machine focuses with an autofocus system. It has a little dot that's here, and all you have to do is whatever you're going to be engraving, you line it up under that dot, you press one button on the top that says autofocus, and the machine focuses. And I will tell you this right now, I have used many different lasers from many different companies. This machine has by far the very best autofocus that I have ever used. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how it works, because most of the other systems you'll see out there will have 2 lasers that come across, and then when they hit each other, they stop, and that's how it knows it's reached its focus point. This laser, when you look down here, all you see is one dot. You put your item under there, you hit autofocus, and the head adjusts to whatever that is. In fact, I'll turn it on and I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. Zoom in so you can see. So there's my little focus dot. All I have to do, I hit autofocus, and that head moves into place. It just lowered itself a little bit, and now it is perfectly autofocused for that spot. Now I can move this wherever I want on my machine, set up the rest of my engraving, and engrave. Let's talk about what is the primary purpose of a fiber laser. Is to engrave and mark metals. So let's take a look at a few of the jobs I did this week. All right, so what you're looking at here is how we place an engraving on something. You can see it's drawing a nice little red laser box around the knife, and the laser engraving is going to be inside there. Now I have a couple different options for how I see this. One can actually show me a replica of what the letters and things are going to look like. One is called a bounding box. So this one's actually showing you the actual engraving. This is Korean writing we're going to be putting on this Shun knife. So I'm just adjusting it to get it exactly where I want. It's nice to have those multiple options when placing an engraving. This one is the bounding box that I mentioned to you, where it draws a line to each one of the furthest points of that engraving and gives you that shape. It's also just a very useful tool for making sure you're placing your engraving exactly where you want it. And there we go. So this one is ready to go. I will just add that this has been one of the easiest upsells for me as a knife sharpener. I don't think I've ever had one of my chefs say no to having his knives laser engraved. So next up was 2 knives for a scout troop. This was for their troop master and a member of their board. And again, a very simple job. Came in, knocked both of these out in probably around 20 minutes, and it paid just over $50 for 20 minutes worth of work to do 2 knives. So here's a few more of the projects that came in May. Another knife, and the person also wanted a binder engraved. We weren't able to do the binder, but I did tell him we could engrave a leather engravable patch. So that's what we decided to put on there. We put this patch on the binder because the faux leather, and we couldn't engrave that. The next one was for a very nice young lady who was getting a very nice Microtech knife for her boyfriend with their anniversary and his initials on it. And that was another job that came in. So as you can see, there's no shortage of knives that come in for laser engraving. But now let's talk a little bit about some of the other uses for it. As you guys probably know if you follow the channel, I do like to use it for my advertising. So I also use the laser for my own uses, mostly making laser engraved business cards. And I currently like to give out to everybody a bottle opener business card, which is what I use. They cost me about 40 cents, but my customers really love them. Being asked to mark coins and also make coins, not uncommon. I was asked to put someone's name on that coin. This is one of my chefs that comes in regularly. We made her a custom-made bottle opener. She does a lot of events in DC. I also get requests occasionally for memorial stones, sometimes for pets, sometimes for people, and that is another thing that I've been seeing a lot lately. Another one that a lot of people don't like to do, but I have had like 3 of them in the past few months, which are urns. And the typical trophies or plaques, also a common thing that you will see that come in. So whenever I'm looking at big pieces of equipment for my business, the one thing I like to see is what's my ROI going to be, or return on investment, and how long is it going to take me to also break even on that investment. So if we take our $1,800 and we divide that by our minimum engraving price, my minimum engraving price is $25. I've been told by many of my customers that's extremely reasonable. There are a couple other engraving places around here, and they told me that they charge much more than I do. They didn't tell me exactly what it was, but that they charge a lot more. You might be able to get more than that. You might be getting less than that. It's going to depend on the region that you're in. You want to take what you think your minimum engraving price is going to be, divide that by your $1,800, and that'll give you the total amount of jobs that you're going to need to do to break even on your purchase. At $1,800, divided by 25, we come up with 72. If we divide that by 12 months, then we come up with 6. If we divide 6 by 4, the amount of weeks in a month, we come up with 1.5. So you would have to do 1.5 engravings a week to break even on this laser in a year's time. And you can see I many times easily do multiple engravings in just one day. So I think you won't find that to be a very difficult number to hit. So now let's talk about the Omni1, my newest laser in my shop. The Omni1 is considerably bigger in size than my ComMarker B6. It even requires a bigger table. So my ComMarker B6 is on a 20-inch wide table. The ComMarker Omni1 requires a 24-inch wide table. So that's one thing you want to be sure of, because this would not fit on the table to the left. Now, if you notice, there is a filter over top of the lighter that I'm engraving, and that's so that you can see the design. And the Omni1 is a UV laser. It is ultraviolet, but that also means that the laser beam that creates the engraving that you can see can only be seen under ultraviolet light. And to do that, we have to put different filters or acrylic colors on top of it so that we can see it. And that's what I'm doing here. And I'm going to go into more in depth on these particular filters that I'm using there. What it comes with is the large green piece of acrylic that you see to the left. It does a fantastic job of letting you see the engraving, but I'm going to show you why I have also developed some other ways of doing this and why I like that. Now, the other thing I'm doing here is a college logo. This is for the Virginia Military Institute, and I just want to say, we actually do have permission to use this logo to put it on this gift item, which is not something that happens very often, but they were kind enough to give this person permission. I was shown the letter, and we have permission to use the college's logo. That can be important, especially if you're selling items. You want to be sure that you're not violating people's copyrights. Another thing that's really great when it happens, you can see that this customer sent me a very clear drawing, schematics, and font, and everything that they wanted on this project. And whenever you can get that level of detail out of your customers, it really makes the job go so much easier. So although the piece of acrylic provided by ComMarker works great, the one downside of it is it's very thick. And when you're doing certain engravings, I found it very difficult using that to place the engraving. But I found other items that I could use that worked even better and gave me some other options. And I will list them, and actually I'm going to do an entire video on that to show these other things that you can use to properly place your engravings using the Omni1. But this is what they give you to start with, and I will show you in a later video some of the other things that I have found that work really well. So here's the engraving underway. The other amazing thing of this laser is its beam width. So different lasers have different size beam widths, and this has one of the tiniest beam widths out there, which makes it extremely accurate. So you can engrave metal engravings with super tiny stuff, which becomes really useful if you were doing rings or any type of precious metal engravings. And it just does a beautiful job. And because it's what they call a cold laser, it's not burning the surfaces of things in. It's just truly amazing. The next thing that the Omni1 is probably best known for is glass engravings. This is where this laser truly shines. It will do the nicest glass engravings that you have ever seen. And the nice thing about it is it's not actually fracturing the glass. A fiber laser, like my other laser that I started this video with, would actually start to do little micro fractures in the glass. And if you've ever tried to engrave glass with a fiber laser, which can be done, it's not uncommon to accidentally break the glass or get too hot and it just fracture. Because this is a cold laser, it's actually not fracturing the glass. and it's very similar to like sandblasting, which gives just the most beautiful engravings that you're ever going to see on glass. Let me just show you here. So this was the first one that I even ever did with it. It was a test piece. It was a piece of crystal that they sent in that had the ComMarker logo on it. I decided I wanted to put my favorite YouTube channel on the other side, which isn't my own YouTube channel. It's Area 52. And I decided to put their logo on the other side just as a test and for fun. Now here's a look under magnification with my handheld digital microscope, and you can just see the beautiful quality of that engraving. No fractures. It's just gorgeous. So now I was really excited, and I grabbed some shot glasses that I had and decided to do the same thing. But what I wanted to do this time was invert it. So I did the logo inverted upside down on the bottom. So when looking through the glass, you would see it in the proper configuration. And same thing, my favorite YouTube channel, making myself a shot glass in honor of them. And here it goes. And you can see how beautiful this one turned out as well. When it comes to glass, there is just nothing like this Omni 1. So after seeing these results, I got really excited. And I even went and immediately added glass engraving to my website. I ordered some products to have in because I have been asked many times to add names to awards that were crystal, those glass awards you quite often see in people's offices. I've been asked to do other beer glasses and champagne flutes and all kinds of things that I just avoided because of the fear of my fiber laser cracking it or shattering it, having tested that before. And now having seen how easy it was with this new UV laser, I was truly excited about it. I also had an event coming up that I was going to be able to use it for because my grandniece was getting ready to celebrate her first Holy Communion. So we made a glass ornament in honor of Emma's first Holy Communion, and that's what you're seeing right here. The next thing I wanted to take on was something that's been really popular in my shop when people see them, and a lot of times this is something they'll add on when they come in the shop, is a silicone pet tag. So these are basically all different sizes. Some of them are really tiny. These little bones are super popular, but they're nice and soft, so they don't clang around. So if you get tired of hearing your dog's pet tags or his license jingling when things hit it, these silicone pet tags are a nice option. Now, what's really neat about them is they're two colors. So they have an outer color and then they're black underneath. And the purpose here is to burn away the color part and expose the black, and that's how you get not just a engraving, but literally a three-dimensional engraving into your pet tag. Well, my lasers that I had prior to the Omni 1, some of them really struggled with this, and actually the only one that I found that did a pretty decent job of doing these was my 40-watt laser, which is basically used for cutting, but is a 40-watt diode, and it seemed to have just the right power to be able to get through the silicone without it lighting on fire. But the problem was the beam width is a lot bigger, so it couldn't do really small text. So it would have no problem like doing like a pet's name on the front, but on the back where you'd want to do like the address and phone number and things where you might want to have multiple lines of text on one of these tags, it really struggled with. Well, let me show you what the Omni can do. Has had zero issues because of that incredibly tiny beam width. It can do super small text. It has no problem getting through the silicone. Now, it does take multiple passes to do this. It's not good to do it. I found it's much better to do a whole lot of small passes at fast speed than it is to do like a real slow burn. It doesn't take that long and the results are just really great. So the next thing I wanted to test were these little cat tags I have that are silicone. They are super tiny. We're talking 20 millimeters across in its diameter. That is it. And you can see here from my past laser attempts, these are my test ones, that text just isn't readable. It started to burn. You could do the name just fine, but that's about 4 to 5 millimeters on that name. But on the back side, you just couldn't read that text. You can see that name up top of the street just kind of burned all away. And here's another tag that it just burned and it would just melt and just wasn't doing a great job. I really wanted to challenge the Omni 1. So this is 1 millimeter text. It is super small. And I generally in the past wouldn't be able to do anything smaller than about 3.5 to 4 millimeters on one of these tags with my blue lasers and get it to come out. And even then, it was super challenging to get those settings just right to where it's not burning it and it was actually just engraving it. Wait till you see what this thing can do at 1 millimeter. It's amazing how readable this text is, which is just shows you what that super tiny beam is capable of doing. Now, the other problem that's been solved because of the Omni 1 is the limitation of text. There were certain texts that I just could not engrave with the blue lasers. They would just always burn. So I had only specific texts that worked out well. But because of the precision of this laser, I have not found a text yet that has not worked for me, which is really great because it's giving me a ton of options to really customize these silicone pet tags. I don't get any funky smells either. When I would do this, I'm not picking up anything. I have my air sensor. You can see right here. Let me move this camera for you a little bit. I got an air sensor right next to my fume hood, and we're not getting anything. No particles, no nothing. It's just burning nice and clean right through there. We are clearly through all the white and nice and clean. This was a font that I could not have used before. And you can see the detail. It's beautiful. I always had to go with very basic fonts, Arials, and ones that were just not fine detailed, and I could have never done that before. I could have never got a 2 millimeter engraving that went all the way through without burning that silicone. So that's really cool. And it's nice and clean. The other thing let me grab one and see if I can show you the difference. So here's some of my samples from before. And it might be hard to see on the camera, but it was just never that kind of precision. I'm not sure if you can see it, but inside here you can see where it was just, you can tell it was burned. Now these green ones always came out fantastic. And you can see there's all my testing before from the past. But see all the burning that my other lasers would do? And these were definitely a challenge, you know? But see what I'm talking about, the font that I would have to use? I would have to use very basic fonts because it would just burn. I could never get anything that was really great. Doing these little tiny ones was really tough because they would also, you could burn them and ruin them very easily. And certain colors were really tough. Wow, that is just awesome. I'm pretty psyched about that. I mentioned earlier I have 2 wooden urn lids what they want the person's picture put into. So I wanted to do some testing on photographs. And this laser is known also for doing beautiful images without burning again. And you can see that once you get your settings right, you can just do an amazing job of putting an image into wood. And I was really thrilled with how this came out. It's going to look really great on these urns that I have to do. So that was pretty exciting as well, because doing images, I think, is one of the most difficult things to do, is burning an image into wood. The next thing I wanted to try was doing it in acrylic, because you can do beautiful black and white images on acrylic. So here's the same picture being put on black acrylic, and just look how that pops. Like, it's just amazing. And that is a really cool way to preserve and make a very interesting black and white photo is to put it on shiny black acrylic. So the next thing I wanted to try was engraving clear acrylic. I've always been able to engrave acrylic in the past, but with my other lasers, I had to use non-clear acrylic. It had to be opaque acrylics. Usually certain colors could be a problem for the blue lasers that I owned. They could cut acrylics, but then again, they could only cut opaque acrylics. So these are the material tests for some clear acrylic, and you can see they came out really great. There's a lot of great white options there. The next thing I wanted to try was to see if I could cut acrylic. And this is the first thing that I have attempted with this laser that I was not able to do. I tried cutting this piece of acrylic many times and many ways. And whether I did it fast, whether I did it slow, whether I did a gazillion passes, it just wouldn't cut. I even tried to cut halfway through one side and flip it over and see if I could cut halfway on one side and halfway on the other and create a hole. It was the one thing I was not able to do, was cut clear acrylic with this, but no big deal. Most of the acrylic that I get when it's clear anyway is usually cut in the shape that I already need, so that wasn't a big deal to me. But I just do want you to know that this isn't going to be very good for cutting clear acrylic. You're only going to be able to engrave it. I have seen several people cut glass with this laser. It will cut glass, but as far as cutting acrylic, it really seems to be a no-go unless someone else out there has come up with a process for it that works. I was not able to figure that out. So the next engraving I wanted to attempt was a pair of Apple AirPods. These are my AirPods. I was going to just put my badge number on there and the word police and a little teeny tiny badge. And this thing is, really tiny. But I wanted to see how well this would work out. And it's even on a slight curve here. So this is right at the beginning where the AirPod starts the curve, and it came out really well. So let me show you this engraving real quick, because this is something you do get asked to do. If you have a laser engraving shop, you will get asked at some point or another to engrave AirPods and pretty much all different types of Apple devices. Wow, so that came out great, and you can see it was really fast. I do notice here that my police word is a little bit off, and that is not the laser's fault. That was me. I actually made that little graphic, and I could have done a little bit better job centering it, but I'm really happy with how well that came out and how fast it did that engraving. Looks great. Here are the settings I used for the Apple AirPods in case you have some AirPods you want to do with a UV laser. So now it was time to do some knife engraving, since that's basically what I'm mostly known for. And here I'm putting my logo on this Missin Loner knife that I use for customers, and it came out absolutely beautiful. And then I wanted to do some more. I wanted to see if I could get a nice black mark like I do with my fiber lasers, and I was curious to see what would happen if I did a defocused black mark, which usually gives you the nicest, darkest black mark. And I had to do some testing to get this, but I finally figured it out, and it came out really great. What surprised me was the amount I had to defocus this laser. So this was a regular engraving with regular focus. And then now I'm going to start defocusing the laser. And what was most surprising was I actually had to go to 7 millimeters defocused, which is the most I've ever had to defocus a laser. Once I did that, I got this beautiful black mark, which I tested on this business card first. I actually do one more after this, what you're looking at here. So that one was really close to what I wanted. And then I did a couple more adjustments. And then you'll see here's the last one, which I was really happy with. And then I took out 2 knives to test that setting on some knives just to make sure it transferred really well. And here's the 7 millimeter defocused laser engraving underway, and you can immediately see how nice and black that came out. It really worked out quite well. I was very happy with those results. Now, a lot of people get concerned when they hear that this is a 5-watt machine, but a 5-watt UV laser is very comparative to a 20 or even 30-watt fiber laser. So keep that in mind. It sounds like it's real low in power when you hear, fiber lasers that are even 100 watts. It's not an underpowered unit at all. It can really engrave really, really well. And you can see that it just has so many types of things that you can do with this laser. And that is one of the advantages of it. So let's crunch some numbers. The Omni1's current price is around $3,999, and there's some other discounts out there, so maybe a little less. But in general, if we were to divide that by what I charge, $25 per engraving, that comes out to 160 engravings. That breaks down to 3.3 engravings a week before you would break even on the cost of that machine. Also, not a particularly difficult number, in my opinion, for many people to reach, to do 3.3 engravings in a week. I would also remind you of this too, and this is one thing that has often helped in my business when it came to laser engraving, is by landing bigger jobs. So when you get those CEOs that are buying gifts for everybody, or businesses that are buying gifts for the employees, or conferences, birthday parties, all things that I have had to make things for, those types of jobs will also help pay your laser off much quicker than just the one individual jobs here and there. And one other point when it comes to pricing, there are some things that I do price under my minimum price of $25 for an engraving. One of those things are like the pet tags. I only charge $13 for those if someone wants a pet tag. There are times that I will drop that price if I feel that that is too high, but I do try and keep most of my items being things that are $25 or more if I'm going to actually offer the item for sale. Having some lower priced items is never a bad idea and can be great money makers as well. I have some things that have sold for kids that are buying gifts for their parents. So affordable, personalized gifts can be a really great money maker too. As always, I will leave links in the description of the video to the items that you saw in here. Some of them are affiliate links, so that means I get a small commission if you purchase through that link. That's really helpful to the channel when you guys do that. And thank you again for checking out the channel. And if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. So what's the best laser for you? Well, the best person to answer that is going to be you, depending on what you want to do, what you want to engrave, and what you think will be good for your business. The great thing is with either one of these ComMarker lasers, I don't think you can go wrong. They're both fantastic, and they both do beautiful engravings and will help your business be successful.